Dreamer stood out for me because as hard as Dreamer worked at ECW and as much responsibility as he had, if I came to a show and he would be like running somewhere to get something done and he saw me, he'd always take a moment to come over and say hi to me, ask me how I'm doing. Even if it was just a quick hug and a kiss on the cheek, hey little Carino, how you doing? And he would take off. And I just thought that was so sweet that, you know, Tommy Dreamer, this guy who has been in the business for so long and everybody knows his name, you know, is taking a moment out of his busy schedule just to say hi to me. And I always thought that was really, really cool. Sandman was always really friendly to me. Nova was usually mean to me, but that's just Nova. That's just his way. Francine was great. Dawn Marie was great, but I had met Dawn Marie before she was even in ECW, back when she was in ECWA out of Delaware and working in New Jersey, working for like Dennis Carluzzo and stuff. So I had met her a little bit on the indies, so I had that in with her. And Elektra was really nice to me. Jazz was always friendly, you know, not overly friendly as much as like Franny and Dawn were, but she was always really nice to me. I got along well with Blue Meanie, got along well at the time with Jasmine St. Clair when she was in there. I'm trying to think. Jack Victory was always great. Always treated me like this little sister. I mean, Keener was there at the time. Keener always looked out for me. Like, everyone pretty much was like, all right, this is Steve's sister. Don't fuck with her. Have fun. You know, she's just hanging out, supporting her brother. Doring was always sweet. Chetty was always sweet. Trying to think who else. Paul Heyman was always very nice to me the few times, like, I actually got to talk to him. Rhino was really great. I remember once, it was my birthday, and I had driven to Richmond, Virginia to see my brother wrestle because it was my birthday. And my parents were coming from North Carolina, and I drove down to Richmond. It was only a 4-hour drive. And I remember Rhino coming up to me, hey, you colored your hair. And he remembered, you know, he noticed that stuff. So I thought that was really, really cool. Well, Balls Mahoney was always really sweet to me. Guido, Big Sal Graziano. Oh, we used to have so much fun. There was one time at the show where there was a guy and he was sitting in front of me, and I always sat in the same section, like I always sat with the wives and the girlfriends, kind of away from the crowd, off the camera where no one could see us, but you know, it was still kind of in the crowd. And so there were these fans, and the one was sitting in front of me, he goes, you're Carino's sister, aren't you? And I was like, oh God, I don't feel like answering questions. I was like, no. They're like, you look just like him. I go, he's blonde, come on. They're like, okay, yeah, good point. Couldn't believe they bought that. And they're like, why are you always at shows? And I was like, you really want to know? And they're like, yeah. And I had been wearing jewelry, and I had just happened to have a ring on my ring finger. I go, married to Sal. They're like, Big Sal? I'm like, yeah. And they bought it. And so like a couple days later, I get this message from Sal going, why am I getting congratulation emails for my recent marriage to you? So I fessed up to Sal what happened, and he thought it was funny. And a couple years after I broke into the business, I ended up doing a show with one of those kids that asked me that. He ended up going on to becoming a wrestler. So I thought that was pretty cool. But I remember getting the phone call from Feinstein asking me to be a part of it. And he's like, yeah, you know, I still remember the phone call, which is really funny because there's parts of my ROH career that I really don't quite remember, but I distinctly remember the phone call that started it all. Because I kept hearing about this company, and I was like, wow, you know, Steve's working there, all these people are working there, and that sounds really, really awesome. And I just figured, oh, they have no interest in me. And then the one day, because I knew Rob through like ECW and stuff like that, and he was always really cool to me. And so I see Rob call me on my cell phone, and I'm with the person that I was dating at the time. He's a little known fact, he's actually the musician behind the Blue World Order music. So when you hear that music and you hear that guitar, I dated him for like 9 months. And he's a fantastic musician. And so Joey and I are going out to breakfast one morning, and Rob calls me, and he's like, hey, you know, you heard about this Ring of Honor thing that we're doing? I'm like, yeah, you know, I wish you the best of luck. It sounds awesome. He goes, can you come in for a spot? And I was like, hell yeah, what do you need? And he's like, you know, we're going to put you with this Christopher Street Connection guys. And at the time, I didn't really hear a lot about them. And I made a mental note, you know, I was going to get online and check them out. And I was like, yeah, I'd really love to. And he's like, okay. He goes, I have a question for you, and I cleared it with your brother. Can we put you through a table? And I'm like, you know what, Rob, I've never gone through a table, but fuck it, let's do it, yeah. So that was the game plan. I got there, and that's when I met the Christopher Street Connection for the first time, and Buffy hated me right off the bat because I was cock competition, and I remember Mickey and I did 2 kiss spots. I think one was Philly and one was Boston. And that was her idea. Again, her idea. And this was right when I think I started doing the wigs thing. Because I didn't know what to do with my hair at that point. And I was like, you know, why not be crazy? Found some wigs on sale at the Halloween shop. I was like, you know, screw it, let's have a little fun with that. So I remember doing the one kiss thing with her. And then I remember doing the second one, I think is the one maybe where I took the DDT. It's kind of fuzzy what happened with what, but yeah, that got such a pop too. And I remember walking in the locker room and being like, strutting in, all the guys were like, because at that point, you know, with Alexis in there, everybody loved her. All the guys were like, she's so cute. I want to hang out with her. I want to know her. And I was like, I made out with her. It was nice. Yeah, so there was a little jealousy factor going on there. But it played really good into the whole, I'm the fag hag, I'm the lesbian, you know, I'm going to stalk you, ha ha ha. And again, you know, she got her final comeuppance against me and got comeuppance against Christopher Street Connection. You know, eventually she went on to beat Mace in a singles match, and so. I remember, I believe that was in Philadelphia. God help me if I'm wrong. I know people are going to be on the internet going, Danger fucked everything up. Well, you know what? I've been hit in the head a lot, so I'm allowed to fuck up dates and times and places. I remember a little bit about that match. I remember Raven being cool. I want to say I got my jaw dislocated in that. If I remember correctly, this was the tag match. If it's the one in Philadelphia, it's the one where Lucy and I were opposite each other, and we kept making little crab things at each other, because that was like a little inside joke with us. It still kind of is today. And we were doing crab things. I come in, and I gave her a DDT, knocked her wig off, and as I'm celebrating, I turn around, and I get super kicked by Punk. Well, I wasn't all the way around when Punk threw the super kick and he caught me in the jaw and dislocated my jaw, which was like the second or third time it'd been dislocated. We're now up to 8 or 9. I've lost count. But seriously, somebody could put me in a headlock wrong and my jaw will come right out of its joint. It's really messed up. But if I remember correctly, that's what happened in that. I got hurt, and for the next couple of days it was soft food. And I remember being kind of frustrated because I was going somewhere to eat that week and I couldn't eat it. And I was like, ah. But yeah, that, oh my God, this is bringing back so many memories to think about that stuff. But it was cool when Raven was in Ring of Honor because, you know, he was really helpful. Like after matches, he'd sit everybody down, talk to us what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, what he would do different. And so that was really cool to get that perspective because everybody knows Raven's a pretty smart guy. But it was just a quick, easy little match, me and Sumi. Good time. And then at the end of it, Punk comes out, and this is Daphne Lucy had gotten signed to WWE, so she had to disappear. This was right before Tracy came in as her replacement. And the whole storyline was somebody took out Lucy. Like there was video footage of Lucy playing with a camera, getting hit from behind, boom. No one's seen Lucy since. What happened to her? You know, Punk's trying so hard to find her, but he can't find her. And what happened was he comes into the ring, I scurry out, and then I run to the back all afraid. And he's got to cut a promo about, you know, how desperate he is, that he's determined to find out what happened, who took out Lucy, all that stuff. And the problem with that was none of us remembered to tell Sumi that there was going to be a promo at the end of the match. So I believe Sumi beat me, and Sumi's in the ring celebrating, doing her little Japanese, that sign. And so she's jumping corner to corner. Punk chases me out. Punk's standing in the ring, and Sumi's just kind of looking at him like, what are you doing in my ring? And so she looks at Punk, and Punk looks at her, and she's like, and he's like looking at her, and she's like, and so I guess he goes to put out the hand, and she goes, and then runs off, and she punked Punk, not knowing that he was cutting a promo, and Punk didn't know what the hell she was doing. And I remember him standing there with this incredulous look on his face, because he's just like, the fuck just happened here? And so Sumi comes to the back, and we all had a really good laugh about it. Like, I remember after getting a copy of that tape, just watching it for like a couple minutes, looking at Punk going, because at this point, you know, Punk and I are still roommates. Punk and I were roommates until I moved out in May of 2004. So I just, we'd be in the room together. I'd be like, Punk. And he'd be like, oh, I'd be like, fuck you. I remember Danny and Daniels and I are standing in the back. And we're just sitting there, and we're like, he's going to hit somebody with the mist. And Dan's like, I want the mist. And I'm like, no, I want the mist. And Daniels is like, fuck you too, I'm the vet, I'm taking the mist. And we're like, dude, that's not fair. And the three of us are arguing over who's going to get misted. We're like, we don't care when it's coming. One of us wants to take it. And at this point, they're putting the face paint on it. He had the two young guys with him. I believe his two young guys were the tag team of Miyamoto and Homa. I definitely know Homa was one. I think Miyamoto was the other. And we're just watching him make that transformation, because a couple people think I'm crazy when I say this. I think Great Muta is a very, very handsome man. I love the salt and pepper goatee going on. I just think he's a good-looking guy. I've made the joke in the past that I do find Asian guys attractive, that I'm a bit of a rice queen, to quote Brian's cousin off of Family Guy. I'm a bit of a rice queen. And I just thought he was so handsome, and then to see him make that transformation and have that mask on and the makeup on, it was like, oh my God, you were just speechless. Like, what really can you say? You are in the presence of absolute wrestling greatness. And so that match was so great, because I remember he's in the ring, blah, 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 and he stops and he looks up and he shoots mist up in the air, and we were just like, oh. And then later, Dan gets misted, but he got misted right by me. And the first thing I did was I grabbed him and I held him to me, and I had mist all down my arms and all across my chest, and it was everywhere. And I was like, I got it anyway. Fuck you, Danny. I got it. I got it. And it was funny because I went to the back, and Low-Key goes, how was it? And I go, oh. And I made Low-Key, somewhere there's a picture that Low-Key took of me covered in mist. And I don't know whose camera it was, so I never got a copy of the picture, but I'd love to find it. And it was great. And then when Muda went up to do the moonsault, and I caught him and I interrupted it, I literally got a cunt chant. And it was funny because I think the guy who yelled it ended up being a friend of Sterling James Keenan, who was a really good wrestler out of Pittsburgh. It just was so funny. And I remember cheering, and I'm by Danny's foot, and Daniel's in the ring, and he puts Muda in a chin lock. And Muda catches my eye, and I'm chanting, and I'm staring at him, and I'm staring at him, and he goes, and I go, oh, and I legitimately got frightened. I was like, oh, and I hit behind Danny, I go, he's gonna kill me. Danny's like, it's gonna be okay. I'm like, no, he didn't, I'm fucked. So that was just such a cool experience. At one point before the show, and Gabe felt so bad about this. I don't know if Gabe still feels bad about this today, but Homa was playing around with balloons or something, was blowing up balloons, and he's just kind of playing with it. And I was like, what do you got there? And he had just been joking with me all day. And he was like, I have condom. I was like, no, you don't. And he's like, I have condom. How about you come? Maybe you come, suck my dick. And I just looked at him and he goes, ha ha ha. And he walked away and I go, oh my God, how did he just say that? And like, Gabe later, I was talking to him and he's like, what happened? I go, and I told him the story and Gabe's like, no, none of our girls get treated like that. I go, Gabe, no, don't be mad. It was just a joke. He's like, are you sure? Are you offended? I'll say something. I'm like, Gabe. Like, Gabe's very protective of the girls, you know, and pretty much the entire locker room is protective of the girls. Like, we wanted to do something where I wanted to get thrown into the crowd, and Gabe's like, no, I can't let you get thrown into the crowd. And I'm like, why? And he goes, if you get thrown into the crowd, some stupid fan's going to grab you. Some stupid fan grabs you, my locker room's going to clear out and beat the fuck out of this person. And he goes, I need to protect that person. He goes, I don't want anything happening to you girls. So he's really protective and wants to make sure we're okay. And he was so worried that I would be offended or angered by that. And I saw this whole as just being funny. So, but what was great was at the airport when they were leaving to go back, my brother saw Hidaka, who was there, and Homa was there. And so my brother comes running up right through security, right to like the gate, and like jumps on him. And really quick, like, security's like, what's going on? What's going on? Is there a fight? And they're like, no. I know these guys. And so Steve's talking with Hidaka, and he looks at home, and he goes, so, my sister, huh? Oh, Karino-san, I'm so sorry. He goes, I love her. She, my wife. So the big joke is whenever my brother sees him, you know, he always goes up to my brother and goes, how is my wife? And he goes, my sister's doing fine. So I'd sent him a picture of an 8x10 that I had done, and I was like, to my Japanese boyfriend, I love you, Allison Danger. So I don't know if he still has it to this day, but it was just such a funny story. It might not be funny to the fans at home, very funny to me. Oh my God, fans hated him. Fans hated him. I can't recall if that was the day. It was either that or like a month before where he cut this really good promo where he tells a story about a man who befriends a snake, and then the snake eventually turns on the man, and the man goes, why? And he goes, because I'm a snake. And that described that new heel persona you got from Punk, and what was the ultimate thing you could do as a big FU to the fans but sign a WWE contract on the Ring of Honor belt. Fans, the Ring of Honor fans feel very strongly about the roster and the talent there, and they don't want to see them go. Even though it might be the best thing for that particular performer. I mean, like, look what Punk's done with his WWE, ECW career. And fans kind of sometimes think it's a slight on them, like a personal jab, that any of us would move on to another pasture, to another promotion. But, you know, at the same time, we have bills to pay. And, you know, once you get to a certain point in a company, sometimes you outgrow a company, or sometimes a company outgrows you, and you need to be able to move on. And Punk was able to move on in such a fashion where he left a legacy. He didn't just, you know, sign the contract and left. He turned it into something and left with so much heat. And I thought it was a brilliant move on his part. It was a fun night because Matt was taping the Matt Hardy show, which he still continues to tape this day. And so I got to do a quick little plug for the Matt Hardy show for the internet. And also I got to tell a story about Matt. And I recently retold this story at the Hardy Christmas party. And what was funny was I told it to the person who was involved in it. And I'm going to digress for a moment, just because you got me excited about talking about Matt. There's a very funny story about Matt Hardy's dad and myself. And At one point when Steve was just starting ECW, for his birthday, I had commissioned Matt to make Steve a brand new singlet. Because Steve sometimes is kind of hard to buy for. And so I was like, what's the one thing that Steven could really use that could really set it apart from all the other presents he gets? And I was like, oh, brilliant, I'm gonna get him a singlet. So I talked to Matt. Matt hooked it up, designed it. It was really, really cool. If anyone wants to look back on the old ECW tapes, I think it was on the, I don't think it was on the Living Dangerously one. It was 1999, I know that. It was one of the 2 pay-per-views, he was on them. Black singlet, yellow Starburst thing, Steve Corino. I got him that. Fucker sold it on eBay. And I got nothing from the profits, damn it. So Matt gave it to me at a really, really good price. And I'm like, Matt, you know, you're really underselling yourself. And he's like, no, you know, I'm doing it for a friend. I said, listen, I go, I'll only agree to that price if, you know, I can buy you dinner too. And he was like, free dinner, Outback. I'm like, Outback. He goes, all right, cool. So we planned that we were gonna go to dinner, but then he had a chance to do a show. So him and Jeff went off to do the show. He left me a message. I'd worked during the day. This was when I was bartending in right near Fort Bragg. And so he leaves me a message. So when I get home, I was like, okay, I'll call him really quick, leave him a message, say, hey, got it, no big deal, just reschedule another time. And so I call, and I think I called at like 10 or 10:30 at night at this point. Because I was like, I was tired when I came home, took a nap, whatever, woke up, I was like, let me just call him really quick. Figured I'd get his answering machine, just leave him a message. Phone rings, phones ring. I get this grumpy old man. What? And I'm like, is Matt there? Who the hell is this? And I'm like, Matt's friend Kathy? And he goes, the hell do you want? Do you know what the hell time you're calling? I'm like, I'm so sorry, I'll never call again. And I hung up on Matt's dad. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm sitting on my parents' futon. I'm like, and my mom goes, what happened? And I go, Matt's dad yelled at me. And I started crying. And I cried and I cried and I cried. And at this point, Joey Matthews, I think, was living in the same neighborhood. And Joey comes over and I'm like, Joey, Matt's daddy's so mean to me. So the next day I was like, I don't think he told Matt I called. And so Joey's like, well, call back. I'm like, I was like, you call. And so I like dial the phone. I'm like, giving it to Joey. So Joey calls, Matt answers, puts me on the phone. I'm like, Matt, your daddy made me cry. Of course, Matt laughs at me. Joey's laughing at me. Even at this point, my mom and dad are laughing at me. But I swore that I would never, ever, ever call that house again. And to this day, I've never, ever, ever called that house again. If I want Matt, I text him. I don't even call him, I text message him. And maybe eventually he'll get back to me. He says he always returns text messages. He's a liar. But yeah, so I told that story on the Hardy show at the night of Fate of the Angel, or Fate of an Angel. And recently at the Hardy party, Matt's dad was there, and Matt was like, oh, I'm totally introducing you to my dad. And I was like, please don't. Please don't, I'm so scared. So like, Matt introduces me, his dad says hi. I'm like, hi. And I'm kind of standing a little bit behind Matt because I'm nervous. And Matt's like, so I got a funny story for you, Dad. And he tells his dad the story, and the dad goes, she's lying. So, but it really did happen. Matt's dad made me cry. I just remember mostly, like, I remember a little bit of that match. I don't believe we stayed for the post-match celebration. I think we went to the back. I loved Jamie Noble, James Gibson. He was one of the funniest motherfuckers to go through that locker room. He cracked me up at every opportunity with his attempts at sweet Southern charm, and then to have him and BJ try to do it together and charm the pants off of anybody. It was just like, you guys are crazy. And I was really glad to see that he got the title. Like, I wanted to see Daniels finally get it, and I figured eventually Daniels would win the belt, but I thought it was cool because I don't think anyone really expected Gibson to get it. And he was just such an asset to the locker room. I was sad to see him go. I remember his last show. I think it might have been New York City. And I was like, I don't want you to go. You're fun. Because he's so funny. He's just like this crazy little redneck. And, yeah. But I'm glad he won it. I'm glad he got a chance to go with it. And now he's back at WWE. And I hope he's happy there. And if he's not, he should come back to